I don't have a lot in common with Chief Teresa Spence of the Attawapiskat First Nation, other than I love to eat, and it shows. Both she and I are full-figured. The funny thing is, she's still full-figured after a 24-day hunger strike, but she does admit she's been snacking throughout. Well, what would a real hunger strike be like? We're joined by another full-figured friend, Roy Eappen, a medical doctor from Montreal. Hey, Roy, welcome back to the show.
Oh, hi, Ezra.
You know what? Diet is a word. I mean, look at the first three letters, die. But if you actually stop eating altogether and just have, low-calorie liquids, really, you're not going to be long for this world. Am I right?
Well, the best information we have has come from some of the other hunger strikers. Gandhi has lasted as long as 21 days with eating no food, just water. The prisoners at the Maze prison lasted up to about 53 days. But they were eating nothing. Now, there are a couple of factors that will change how long you last, and one of them is, as you said, abdominal girth and fat, because you can live off your fat a lot longer. And one of the reasons that we get fat, because in the old days you and I would survive the famine.
I've been surviving that famine with bells on, Roy. But, I mean, we're just joking around, but Teresa Spence is allegedly in day 24. And I saw pictures of her. She's still got a double chin. She's still, I mean, her clothes don't look big. Let's roll some pictures of actual hunger strikers. You mentioned some of the IRA hunger strikers were dead after 50, 60 days. I mean, that, oh my God, I can barely stand to look at that figure. That guy there is I think at the 2 weeks mark, 2 or 3 weeks. He obviously didn't start with a lot of fat on him. That's what real hunger strikers look like. Do you think based on just your observation of Chief Spence, without examining her in front of you, speaking as a doctor, do you think she's eating more than just empty broth?
It's very hard for me to say because I haven't really looked at her. And listen, I urge her to stop doing this. It's not a good way to do a protest. I think it's sort of emotional blackmail. And the other thing is, she comes from a community which has a suicide rate which is much higher than the national average. And this is sort of showing suicide in a positive light. I mean, I really urge her, as the health minister has before me, to stop this. I mean, there are ways of dealing with the government. I mean, didn't we have a conference between the Crown and the First Nations a couple of months ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. And what gets me is the vagueness of her demand. I mean, if she wants a meeting, but she's not really specific about what the meeting should be about. I mean, I've never heard of a hunger strike about a meeting. I mean, but here's what I want to say. You say that a hunger strike is immoral. That's another way of saying suicide is immoral, and I would agree with you in about 99.9% of the cases. But if there is some cause so grave that it really is worth dying for, to sacrifice your life for, and instead of rushing into combat, you have a spectacle of a suicide by slow motion as a hunger strike, I think there are cases, Dr. Roy, where a hunger strike is morally appropriate, where the ultimate sacrifice is appropriate. I just don't see it here. I just see a vague Occupy Wall Street type grievance, and I see a woman who's never sacrificed anything in her life before, such as her rich salary. I think it's just all fake.
Well, I actually tweeted her a couple of questions. I tweeted, is she still getting her salary? I mean, I'm told from some Native friends that you can get a per diem if you're off the reserve for doing banned business. I mean, is this banned business? I mean, I'm not sure where this is going.
Well, her boyfriend set up a Facebook page begging for money and has a bank account. They're actually fundraising off it. But let me get back to the medical stuff. I mean, you and I like to talk politics because you're a conservative fellow, but let's just talk about a doctor's role. I mean, often hunger strikers have a doctor giving them advice, maybe saying, please take some vitamins or something. If you were her physician, what kind of care, if any, could you try to administer to someone who is on their way to suicide by starvation?
Well, I would encourage her to stop doing this. I mean, if she actually gets to the end points, I mean, the body basically starts consuming itself, and the prisoners from the Maze prison went blind a few weeks before they died. They stopped making sense, several days before they died. It's a dangerous game to play, and I'm not sure of her health situation, but many First Nations people there are high rates of diabetes among people of First Nations. So, I mean, if I were her physician, I would strongly advise her to rethink this course of action. I mean, there is nothing. I mean, you get pain because your stomach is emptying, and I was hearing on the way here that she was having cramps in her stomach, and I guess you could give her little things for pain relief and stuff, but really the solution to this is that she should take sustenance.
You know, I agree with you, and you're speaking as a professional medical doctor, but I actually think this whole thing's fake. I think she's about as much a hunger striker as I am when I go on hunger strike from my midnight snack until breakfast. I think this whole thing is a PR stunt, but the media has fallen for it. I mean, there was no falling for it. Some of those grotesque images of real hunger strikers we just showed. No one, you don't have to be a doctor to know they were actually starving themselves. This woman here is just playing the media like a fiddle. I mean, here's our snackers hunger strike food pyramid. It's a bit of a joke. Listen, Doctor, I want to keep in touch with you on this, because if this woman actually does start hunger striking and losing weight, this moves into a serious category. Right now, I would just call it a media stunt and a spectacle, but I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Ezra.